Hello and welcome to Shredded Cels, episode 21. I am your host, Alex Schmitz, and with me here today is Andrew Gleason.
Hi there.
Clara Heimberger.
Hey.
And Gretchen Snyder.
Hey.
Hey, so yes, we're back. This is our first podcast of 2013. It's been about a full month since we did a podcast, probably more than that. We've had a long winter break here at Ohio University. But now we are back, and we're here to talk about the show Angel Beats, and we will be talking about the show Madoka Magica for next week. Those of you who listened to our Kids on the Slope episode, I believe that was episode 20, you'll know that both Madoka Magica and Angel Beats were the two shows we sort of assigned to ourselves over the break. And for those of you who are listening to us for the first time, you'll be interested to hear that this Shredded Cels podcast is part of Tech Heads, which is part of AVW Productions, a media production organization here at Ohio University. We do lots of podcasts and videos and blogs and things on movies, video games, anime, all sorts of good stuff. But ours, of course, is the best of all the podcasts. As you can see, since we are the first ones, back recording, we're dedicated, we're ready for the new year.
Always.
Totally.
Of course. So to start it off, when we talk about the animation we've watched since last time, and Andrew, why don't you start us off?
All right. So Young Justice came back near the start of the year, and that was really exciting for me because they played 2 episodes back in September, and then they just stopped, and they're like, okay, we're not going to show you any more Young Justice until the end of the year, and it wasn't a cliffhanger. I don't know why they did that, but so Young Justice came back, and that was exciting. And then for Christmas, my friend got the first season of Digimon on DVD, so we literally marathoned that.
Nice.
The whole week. We're halfway through it, and then he's watching the Japanese version to see the differences. And we've got this big thing about how it's an RPG and the DM's dating the one girl, so he's trying to make the other two guys gay together because they're always holding each other's hands. And I do that thing that Clara does. It's then kiss.
Now kiss.
Yes. Thank you, Clara.
You're
You've
welcome.
now
So much
corrupted me.
All the ships.
All
Apparently.
the ships.
The ships are sailing.
And then I guess Archer comes back this week, and that's animated, so.
Yeah, I've only seen a few episodes of Archer. Eric Miller, our producer here at Tech Heads, showed me a few episodes. It was surprisingly funny, sort of that Family Guy kind of humor that's terrible yet funny at the same time.
Yeah.
They are very silly.
Yes. Although Matt Lund was commenting on how the opening is very, very eerily similar to the opening of Cowboy Bebop. I think they might have taken a hint or two from that.
I guess it is true.
Hint, hint.
Bond-esque sort of thing.
Yeah.
All right. And Clara, how about you?
My friends and I found an old Yu-Gi-Oh movie, The Pyramid of Light or something. And so we're watching that and making fun of Joey Wheeler the whole time because he's so Italian,
Brooklyn Rage.
Yeah, but everything he was saying was so stereotypically Italian. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, Joey, you're not in the mafia. Get out of here. You're not cool. Please go away. And then Kaibo is being an egotistical jerk, always.
Of course.
But, even more so this episode. And I'm like, Kaiba, just stop. Just stop.
Right. Well, there's we've talked about how we love Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge here on the show, and he actually did a abridged movie of that movie.
Oh my gosh, I have to watch that.
And one of the biggest plot holes I think that they point out is how, Yugi keeps telling Kaiba, we have to stop this duel, the fate of the world depends on it. And he's like,
Kaiba's
well,
nope.
Well, why don't you just surrender? I don't want to. If it was really the end of the world, do you think Yugi could, concede defeat and just let Kaiba win, and then it'd, be over and nothing bad would happen?
No, because Kaiba's a raging jerk face.
That is true.
If he forfeits, then Kaiba's just gonna flaunt all over it, and that's not good for little Yugi's self-esteem. I mean, he's already short as it is, so... But
needs to compensate somehow.
Besides that, I've mostly only watched Angel Beats and Madoka because I've gotten really, 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 really into Minecraft recently.
Well, there goes your life.
There goes my life.
I haven't started there yet.
It's so wonderful. My friends and I, we all made a town, and we made town square and a tavern. I made a hospital, and my boyfriend made a food area. It's about chickens. My friend Doug's a wizard. And I have a market selling houses in the jungle. I make houses. And we have our own tax system. It's pretty awesome. And tomorrow I have to pay my taxes because it's Friday. So hopefully the server will be on at one point so I can go and do that so
Wait.
I don't get my stuff repossessed.
So that can actually happen?
Well, like, it was just what we've implemented ourselves. Like, if you don't pay your taxes, my friend Dylan will go into your house and, like, steal your things and break your stuff. Or he'll get the server to kill you, because you can do that, apparently.
So it's not actually part of the game, he just, like,
Yeah,
does
we
it?
just do it ourselves. Like,
That's hilarious.
Minecraft is the furthest thing from, like, a role play type situation, but we always make it into one. My friend Doug's like, I'm a wizard. I'm going to break away from the group right at the beginning and be extremely rich and offer you things for outrageous prices. And we're just like, go away, Doug. You're too expensive. And then, of course, he moves into the town that we've recently made. And now he's expensive in our town. And so that's pretty much been my life so far.
Let's see. Now, do you have proper defenses to, like, ward off the zombies and Endermen
We
and all that?
we have a fence surrounding our town, but then we have a 3-block wide wall of cactus. So
Nice.
if they get too close, they get hurt. And sometimes if they like end up like close enough, we can hit them with like arrows, and then they fall into the cactus, and then they just get caught in there and die, which is really funny because you just hear like the noises of the skeletons. You're like, oh, one's in the cactus farm.
Oh, not again.
Not again. That, and we made an iron golem to protect our town, but then it got stuck in our farm area, and we couldn't get him out for the light. We don't know even how he got in there, because for some reason they can jump over 1.5 high blocks. So somehow he got into our garden, and we couldn't get him out, so we had to kill him. It was pretty. Well, there's no use for him in
Had to put him down.
We had to put him out of
Oh.
commission. But that's
sad.
about it.
We mourn you, Stone Golem.
What did we name? We named him Jeffrey. All of them were named Jeffrey.
That's so sad. As for myself, obviously I watched Angel Beats and Madoka. I also watched a number of other things. My library happened to have the Bleach movie. It's called Bleach Darker Than Black, I believe. This would be the third of the Bleach like spin-off movies that I've seen. And this one was actually pretty good, I thought. You know, for obviously nothing can really happen to the main characters, you know, because they can't actually do anything to them that would interfere with the manga and the main story. But
They try real hard, though.
yeah, well, it was basically focused a lot on Ruki and like her past, and the villains actually like sort of cared about her, but in the end they were sort of like corrupting her, and this whole thing, and there was some cool action in it, and so I enjoyed that for what it's worth. What else did we watch? I watched a few episodes of Full Metal Panic, which I've heard good things about, but watching the first few episodes, it was kind of slow going, and I wasn't really laughing a ton at a lot of the jokes. So
I've only seen Fumafu. I haven't seen like the regular one or whatever you
I
call it.
saw the first one, and then I watched a little bit of Fumafu, and it was silly. Like, it was meant to be silly,
Well,
but
Yeah, I liked it.
it was cute.
yeah, well, I know there's this thing called Full Metal Panic, Fumafu or whatever, but what is it actually about? Is it just like a
It's-
more cutesy version of it?
I
Yeah,
guess so. I haven't
it's
seen
like-
the other one, and I was kind of confused at first, but I was like, oh, this is fun.
They're almost like filler-esque. Like, it's not...
So it's
nothing
more slice of lifey.
important really happens. Like, it's mostly just character and relationship development between is the main character Sosuke or
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the blue-haired chick.
right.
Like,
It's
like
not very long, I don't
It's
think, because I think
not.
I finished it.
I get the feeling though that the show probably gets better as it goes, because I remember at a different time, like months ago, we got the first few episodes of the second season, and the first they started getting into more serious like stuff with the mech battles, but then I actually liked the stuff before that where it was just like them goofing off at high school, and like those were actually kind of funny, but I didn't find the ones in the beginning of the first season to be as funny. So I don't know exactly what that means. What else? Just before I came back, I happened to see Azumanga Daioh at my library's place, and they had the full series on DVD, and I'd heard great things about it. It's like, you know, the best slice of life anime, so I got it, watched the whole thing in like 2 days, and even though I got frustrated at times because they like repeat the same stuff, you know, like every year there's a sports festival, and every year they go to the, you know, out to Chio-chan's house, you know, or certain jokes like repeat themselves, or they just go on like too long, you know, like it's literally just like 2 minutes of the same joke. It's like, okay, well, it was funny the first time, but now you're just letting it keep going, you know, which I suppose part of it might be at the same time I was also rewatching some of Code Geass, and that's like one of the most like fast-paced anime out there that I can think of. Like, you know,
It is
some
pretty fascinating.
scenes, if you will, only last for, you know, like 10 seconds, and then they'll cut to something else, and they're like constantly doing all this stuff, whereas Azumanga Daioh was much slower paced. But yet at the same time, as the show went on, you know, you got to like the characters quite a bit. You know, they're all unique in their own ways. And some of the moments that they have, you know, like struggling with high school and just things that are happening, really still resonated with me. I was also kind of happy that they really didn't bring any romance elements into it, you know, like a lot of high school dramas do. It was just more about their friendship than it was about, you know, any romances and, you know, love triangles between two girls and a guy and all those things. I'm just sort of glad they kept that out of the show.
Madoka.
I've seen like random episodes of Azumanga, and it kind of works just because it's so slice of life that there's not like a plot going on that you get confused with. You can just kind of pick up at a random episode.
Yeah, well,
It's, like, fun.
I mean, your friend just has to give you a quick summary. You know, Chio-chan's 10-year-old. The one girl really loves cute things, but is
So after I saw the first episode,
and, you know, you
I
can give
kinda
quick little
just-
character summaries and then just let people watch, and voila, you know, you can enjoy it, which is a good thing for a show, I suppose, versus a much more plot-driven show, you know, where you're like completely lost if you come in midway through the series. I also watched a few episodes of Cowboy Bebop, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood here and there, you know, stuff I'd seen before, but always fun to rewatch. I rewatched Code Geass. I've sort of come to the conclusion that even though, like, because Code Geass has a lot of problems with it, like with how many times it jumps the shark and some of the filler episodes and the fan service and, you know, some of the plot, like the characters suddenly change their motivations seemingly on the writer's whims. You know, there's not really like, they don't really develop it a ton. So there's lots of like flaws I can find with it, but the ending is so good and the show itself is just so entertaining for me that I can't help but like love it as one of my favorite shows.
Like, I watched the entire first season, and then I watched a little bit of R2, and then that stopped being on demand, so I stopped watching it, and my friend's like, you need to watch it, and I was like, I'll just watch the last episode.
Wait, so
like,
you skipped all of R2?
Most of R2, yes.
Yeah,
But-
I unfortunately, I was watching the first season, and it's all on YouTube, like, legally. And then, of course, R2's not.
Yeah.
And so I had to go to less scrupulous methods to get those, but it was like, you gave me the first half of it for free, and then it ends on a giant cliffhanger. I need to see what happens, you know?
It's mean.
I know. And then actually just yesterday, I had heard about this movie for a while, but I never I heard it was good, but I had never seen it, and I just happened to see it on YouTube. I was like, well, I don't have anything to do. I'll watch it. And it's called The Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, which is, most of you probably know the show Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, which I have also seen, and I enjoy it. I think it's a good show, but maybe not like the greatest thing ever, not my favorite. Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya is actually really long. It's like almost 3 hours, which is sort of strange, I think, for animated movies, because usually they're a bit shorter. But it's also just like really good. Like the music is good, the animation's good, and it actually is, even though Haruhi's usually a pretty lighthearted series, it's pretty serious and just focuses on like Kion going through this whole desperate situation, and really gets into some good character development, and, you know, actually like moments, you know, that had me like on the edge of my seat, like goosebumps, you know, like really good drama. So I was very impressed with it. And one last one I forgot about, with another one I found in my library, was a show called Rosaphon. Have any of you guys heard of that one?
No.
Yeah, it's just one I've heard about. It's by I want to say it's by Bones, Studio Bones, who did Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. They've done a lot of great stuff. It's like early 2000s, and a lot of people say it's like Neon Genesis Evangelion, because it's a giant robot show, and it's got some crazy, you know, weird plot things going on, but basically it makes more sense than Evangelion does. I only got through about half of it before I had to leave, unfortunately, but what I'd seen, it wasn't the greatest thing ever, but it was good, and it kept me interested. I'd eventually like to go back and like see how everything plays out, because as it is, you know, they leave you with so many like unanswered questions, and you're like, what does it all mean? You know, I want to know. So that's what I watched. A lot of stuff, as you can tell. Gretchen, how about you?
I started Madoka recently and watched Angel Beats over the break. That was pretty much it. hoping to finish Soul Eater since it's on Netflix, and I started a while ago, like, I think it was last summer. And I think I finished the first season, but I still have a lot to finish.
All right, very cool. And for those of you listening, you may or may not know that there's a big anime convention actually coming up here in the next few days in
So
Ohio
excited.
called OhioCon. I think Kenny was telling me that it's actually one of the biggest conventions in the U.S., which I didn't know.
It's pretty big.
So
I'm
that's
pretty
pretty
sure
cool.
like Comic-Con is the biggest.
Well,
but-
yeah.
Well,
yeah,
but
but
of
like
anime.
anime conventions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the
Me too, Kyle.
Columbus Convention Center.
Oh, yeah.
So excited.
Yes, unfortunately, I cannot go because I have some film things I need to do this weekend, and Andrew also cannot go.
I can't go.
Andrew.
It's also
What?
quite expensive.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's-
especially if you're staying overnight.
Yeah,
geez, yeah.
that's another reason I didn't want to do it. But Clara, why don't you tell us what you're doing for it?
All right, my friend Dylan is going to be the engineer from Team Fortress 2, if anyone's played that game.
Mhm.
And I felt bad because he was the only one cosplaying, so I'm going to be Scout in female form.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Because, well, I see a lot of girls dressed as Scout, but, like, as a boy. But I wanted to, like, make it ridiculously feminine, so I'm doing, like, knee-high socks.
That's so fun.
Little black shorts, a V-neck red shirt. Probably going to get a fluffier black hat, like the one I have in my room. I'm probably going to use that. But, and I've got this, it's like a almost foam baseball bat that my boyfriend has in his room for some reason. I don't know why. And I discovered it when I was back on break, and I'm like, can I have this? And he was like, yeah, sure, I'll just bring it when I'm going to con. So I have to call him tomorrow and make sure he remembers it. Because if not, I'm going to not be a very good Scout. But I'm going to be staying Friday through Sunday with my friends. We got our hotel room. Hopefully it's bigger than the one we got for Colossal Con because we had 10 people in that room,
What?
which was supposed to fit about 4.
Oh, God.
And it was great, though, because I got a lot of footage. My friends and I had a lot of fun. I was Cel from Portal 2 during that con, which was fun. But my friend Dylan, he was Aang. From the beginning of the Avatar series, so he got a lot more pictures than I did. I'm not jealous, I promise. But spite. But I'm really excited because I've never been to OhioCon. I've been to
Oh,
Colossal
it's so
twice,
good.
and I've been to Shimboku once.
I've been to
which
Colossal.
is pretty tiny convention.
Are you
But,
actually staying at the Hyatt?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
we got
I'm
a
like down the
room.
road.
Yeah. Last year, I didn't go last year, but my boyfriend and my friends did, and they had to stay in a different hotel, so they had to like drive there and park
Yeah,
in
that's
a
what they
shady
usually
parking
do.
lot and one-way streets, and so now they're really excited to get a room, and I'm excited too, and I'm just excited. That's like the only word I can think of is just excitement.
I know. After
and
class tomorrow, I'm
anticipation.
just going to be like so ready.
I know I get out at like 11:40, so I'm just gonna like grab my stuff and then go sit out inside by the bus stop, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Gretchen?
I'm going as Yuna from Final Fantasy X-2, but it's like one of the alternate costumes, so it's the gun mage.
Oh.
So we're going to hope that people recognize it. It looks like Yuna, but I don't know if they know like that class/outfit.
Yeah, I've seen people do like normal Yuna from Final Fantasy X, like her summoner's outfit that she wears throughout most of the game.
Yeah, my friend's actually going as that one, so we're going to be Yuna and Yuna.
Oh,
That's
I see.
cute.
Oh, that is cute.
That's cool. Yeah, she should start doing the dance at some point, like that she does. When
I think
she's
she
doing
actually learned it, so hopefully she does it.
That's awesome.
That is intense.
Like, I have a friend who normally goes, and she knows so many dances, and I'm like, Paige, how do you know all these dances? And she's like, this is all I do when I go home. And I'm like, we should go get coffee sometime because this isn't healthy.
Right. All right. So why don't we go ahead and get into the main topic for this week, which is the show Angel Beats. It's a 2011 anime, so one of the newer ones, actually, and it's produced by a studio called PA Works. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know much about them. They're based on a bunch of light novels and manga, I believe, by, what does it say here? Okay. I thought there was like a group that did it, but I guess not. It's just a person. It says Jun Maeda is like the main writer for those. So there you go. I am actually, that's something that surprises me. Like looking at anime in general, like even like Kids on the Slope and like Fate Zero, things like that, they're almost all based off of like light novels or manga, in some form or another. It doesn't seem like there's that much that's original, completely original. But getting on with the show, I guess. What did you guys? What were your guys' sort of first impressions of the show? I know you, Clara and Gretchen, you guys had seen the show previously before we started talking about it, right?
I had seen like just a couple episodes, and then I kind of forgot about it.
And Clara,
I watched
you'd seen the whole thing.
Japanese with subtitles, and then I watched it again when it came out dubbed.
Oh yeah.
Just to see like the voices, and it was actually a fairly good dub. I thought
yeah,
a lot of the voices matched up nicely. I recognized a lot of them from Clannad, but that's just me.
Yeah, I watched a few of the episodes in English, and I thought they were pretty good. Although I don't know, it's sort of weird when you've been watching a series, like I watched the first 11 episodes or whatever in Japanese, and switching to English, for like the last few, it was like, I'm used to the other ones.
Yeah. And like sometimes, like when I'm watching the Japanese with English subtitles, the characters will have high-pitched voices, but because it's Japanese, I can tolerate it. But as soon as it becomes English, I'm like, stop it.
Right.
Stop talking.
Oh, Yui.
Yui, you and your little punkiness needs to tone it down a bit. You need to shush.
Yeah, Yui is interesting, I think, because
she's cute, but she's annoying.
Yeah, some of the jokes that she did, I actually thought were kind of funny. like her being crazy and like fighting with Hinata all the time and all that.
I ship it so hard.
Everybody ship that.
See, now that actually makes sense.
I know.
Okay, I'll allow you to ship people who actually are in relationships and shit.
I don't need your permission.
Apparently not. But like there was I'm trying to remember which episode it was. I think it was episode 7 or something. And she kept on like making these jokes about, I'll try to stop myself from wetting myself or something like this. And she said it like 3 times over the course of the episode. I was like, okay, that wasn't funny the first time. Why are you repeating it?
I actually love Yui. I think she's so cute. She does get a little annoying, but I think she's adorable.
Especially her past. It's
I know.
It did bother me a little bit that like she's got this high. She's obviously younger than most of them, and she's got this high pitched voice. But when she starts to sing, it seems like there's a different person doing it. It doesn't match up at all. Because
the band Girls Dead Monster is actually a band, so they use their music in it.
Right.
So it was their singers, which probably were not the voice actors.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I want their CDs.
I know. Well, that was one thing I think that could be said of the show in general. No matter what you may have thought of the story and all the rest of it, the music throughout was really amazing. From all the Girls Dead Monster songs to just the soundtrack in general. I really love the opening to this show. It might be one of my favorites. Both the song and the animation that goes with it I thought was really cool. What did you guys think of the music?
Oh, I love it. Like the because when you marathon like the anime, like the songs start getting stuck in your head. All the time. So when I marathon that, like I had that theme song running in my head for like a week.
Right. Well, and for me, like I went and downloaded some of the songs off of YouTube, and I've listened to the ending, the song that plays at the end of episode 13, like several times at this point, because it's always just like, oh, it makes me so sad.
The ending is really sad.
Fun fact, actually, if anybody else didn't notice this, the song that ends episode 13 and the song that ends the what is it? Probably episode 9, I think, where Yui disappears. They're the same song, but it's like 2 different versions. Like the one with Yui is a bit more like a bit more intense, like a bit more rocky, whereas the 13 one is more calm, which I suppose fits, their respective characters, between Yui and Kaneda, or Angel, or whatever we want to call her. Well, yeah, why don't we talk about, like, what I would sort of consider to be the first part of the show, which is all of the, the introduction to the world and all the stuff where they're fighting Angel, before the show kind of shifts away from that. Because for me, pretty early on, I had sort of had this inkling, that Angel was going to turn out to be, something different. She didn't seem like evil.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
she
know?
was. She didn't really resemble evil, until she like stabbed him, and then I was like, oh, that
Then you
happened.
kind of question it.
And then you're like, wait a minute, why did she just stab him out of nowhere? I don't. Why?
Well, he asked for it. And,
Well, yeah, he did.
And
then
that,
she
see,
Well, I don't
knows.
think he asked like, oh, hey, stab me in the chest.
well, no, he's
but-
like, prove that I can't die. So she did.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
knows that he's not going to die, so it wasn't like
Yeah.
she
So-
was evil because
Yeah.
she
I
wasn't
didn't
planning
think-
to kill him.
I didn't
Yeah.
take that as evil. I was like, oh, well, he did ask for it. So in her
little
defense,
bit.
Yeah, Angel's sort of that sort of cliche character you see in a lot of anime, who's very sort of quiet girl who's very logical, and intelligent and all that. Sort of like I'm thinking of like Yuki Nagato from Haruhi or Rei from Neon Genesis Evangelion. There's lots of examples of that type of character.
I really liked her English dub voice. I think it fit her really well.
Oh, it was like very quiet
It
and
was
just like
It's like, oh, what do you want me to do with this? And I'm like, you're so cute.
so cute. Yes. What else about it? I did definitely enjoy just a lot of the action in the show. Like the show in general is quite well animated, and the parts that I thought showed that off the most were the fight scenes, obviously, and then the bits where where the band was performing. Like whenever they would cut away to them, they'd obviously put a lot of effort into like the animation for them rocking out to their music and all that.
I loved all the episodes they had the band in.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
also
really
love the art in that show.
You mean like the character designs and things? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like they do a good job, because like as it shows in the opening, it does that thing where it's got all the characters' names next to all of the models and everything. And there's a lot of characters in the show, and some of them are definitely more memorable than others. Like I can't even remember. I think the brown-haired guy who had a sword with him. He had like a katana. I barely even remember what he did in the show. He was a bit more of a minor
One
character.
of them had the voice of Akio from Clannad, and that's all I thought of when I heard him. I was like, Akio.
I was going through the Wikipedia list of characters earlier, and some of them I was like, when did we see that? Like,
Right.
because there's so many. Just
Yeah, I definitely feel like that's one of the perhaps weaknesses of the show is because of its limit of 13 episodes. Certain characters get developed while others don't. Like one of my favorites of the minor characters in the group was TK.
oh, I was just about to
yes.
say that.
I love
He-
TK.
Always
He's
spoke
awesome.
English.
Get
yeah.
chance and luck.
I kiss you.
Kiss you. I love him so much.
And I love how in like one episode they even say, "Oh, but he doesn't actually know English." Surprisingly,
Yeah, it's so funny. I actually put a picture up on my blog of him, and I was like, "This is my new favorite character," and like 50 people reblogged it quickly.
that's funny.
I love him.
I was really hoping, like, of all the minor characters, that we didn't get backstories for, I was hoping we learned a little bit more about him because we don't even know what
I
his
know.
real name is. We don't really know anything about him.
We don't even know what his eyes look like.
Nope.
I think one of my favorite things he's ever done is like, what's his name? He takes over Angel's position.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're
Does
talking
it start
about.
with an N?
Yeah, it's like Naoi.
Yeah, no, that's what his name. And so like he opens the door when they're all goofing off in class, and then they like hide their game board and they all jump out the window, and he like does like scuba dive backwards, just like.
Oh,
holds
yes.
That was I laughed so hard when he did that when I saw it for the first time. I'm like, TK, I love you.
His Wikipedia description was like a mysterious guy that likes to dance randomly.
He does.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
Just-
pretty much it.
Just find him spinning on
True.
his head somewhere. Just
Right. And let's think. One of the other characters, I'm curious what you guys think of it. I forget his name, the sort of nerd guy who would do all their computer stuff.
call
and
me
he would
Christ.
Yes,
Yeah.
he'd always have that. I don't know. I sort of went back and forth on that joke. At some points, I found it was funny, but then it was like sometimes it was too repetitive. I did
Yeah.
think the one time I did think it was really funny was in the fishing episode when Angel accidentally like hooks him with her fishing pole and sends him flying into the air, and they say his name. He's like, "Call me Christ," as he team rockets out into the
that
sky.
was really funny.
So that was pretty good.
I thought it was kind of pretentious from the beginning. I was like, you're
yeah.
just no,
Right.
get out of here, Takahara.
I will say I did think it was a little like, obviously, they established the rules of this world, it being an afterlife where even though you can't die, but apparently you can, get like super injured and be debilitated, but somehow you get resurrected. Like they never show that. Like when they go down to the guild in episode 2 and everybody dies except for Yuripi and Otanashi. They don't show how the others survive from getting like their bodies completely mangled and they just like heal back together. Like
it's kind of confusing-esque.
It just sort of happens.
TK stopping ceilings.
Yeah, it was a little like, I don't know. It was a little gruesome and sad, but at the same time, it's sort of like almost like Dragon Ball Z in a way, because it's like death has no meaning since they can take it away. And then it was interesting how they have this whole idea that how they're making all their weapons is just from dirt, and as long as like the guild members know the construction, how these things are made, and they're able to make the materials for them. I thought that was a little strange, a convenient way for them to have all these ridiculous guns and things. But
like I think it makes sense later on when we find out the world is meant for them to relive their dreams and like stuff. So like,
but why would whoever created the world, and we're gonna avoid mentioning the name of the individual,
Kami-sama.
Yes, the one everyone's looking out for in that show. But why would he make this world where if he doesn't want them to fight, why would he make this world where it's so easy for them to create weapons of mass destruction and try killing each other?
Well, I mean, the only one they're really fighting is Angel.
That's true.
So because she became a threat, they responded by making these weapons.
I don't think she didn't become a threat. I think how it went, even though we didn't see it, they sort of talked about it, was they would be disruptive, doing whatever their plans were, and she would sort of stop them, and they got mad, so they would go make the guns, and so she got the Angel player like stuff and used that to fight off them.
Yeah, she never really did a whole lot to them, and they made her sound just like kind of terrible.
Yeah.
Right.
But like they weren't exactly like, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Like they don't think very logically, I guess. That's not what how do I say this? It's like they instantly jump to conclusions.
Yeah.
Way too fast. I don't think there's a word for that.
Fair.
But
well, all of them, had reasons for why they were in the brigade. Like obviously Yuripi has, a super sad backstory and why she, hates God and wants him to answer for what he's done, and she sort of refuses to let herself be at peace, I think they find good ways of explaining why they're doing what they're doing, but given what you learn, later on, it does seem like, couldn't Kanade have sort of just sat down peacefully with them and been like, hey, so if you fulfill your dreams and your lingering emotions, and you eliminate those and become happy in this world, then you get get reincarnated. That's pretty cool.
yeah,
she just kind of leaves them alone. She's like, oh, they hate me.
I guess, yeah. They always, near the beginning of the show especially, they refer to it as being obliterated, so, and I think they talk about it as in sort of, I believe this is a Hindu belief in reincarnation, if you've been a bad person, then there's a chance you'll be reincarnated as a bug or,
flea.
Yeah, something bad, and I think they talked about that in one of the earlier episodes, and that's one of the reasons they were trying to avoid being obliterated in the first place. Which was something that did sort of bother me as we learned more about the world later on, because the whole idea was that, if you went to class and, had this fun school life, then you would pass on. Kanade said that, anybody who allied with her, and had a normal school life eventually passed on, and she was left alone fighting against all the brigade members. But then all of the people in the battlefront, I shouldn't call it the brigade, the battlefront, all of them don't go to school, obviously, but they all end up, fulfilling their dreams or, what they set out to do, finding their happy lives, with their group of friends, in that battlefront, So why is it that they have to go to school? Can't they do their own things, outside of the rules of the school, because some of it is kind of strict, not eating, with outside of, the prescribed lunch hours and, all this other sort of stuff.
I think it was they were just trying to give them a normal life that they didn't have. Give some type of structure or, I don't know. That's what I'm thinking.
I thought it was because Angel, thought that that's what would make them, like, would fulfill them, is having, like, because that's what fulfilled her, is having, like, good grades and, like, a good life. I thought maybe she thought that that would make them happy too, so she was trying to get them to, like, do that. And maybe she's just not a very social person, because she was obviously kind of timid.
Right.
So
Seems she'd been alone for a while.
Yeah,
Right.
I liked her English voice, like you were saying. I think it really shows that, how she just kind of, it feels like detached when she talks, kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I will say, as much as you're sort of supposed to dislike Angel, they give enough hints throughout those early episodes that, there's more to meets the eye with her. I think that really comes through. I think it's in episode 5 when they sabotage her grades and she gets, like, fired from being the school president, and she just stops chasing them, and they're all sort of, like, sad, like, oh, we don't have anyone to fight anymore. What's our purpose? And she's all sad and doesn't do anything to them. It's just sort of her normal self.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have anything to do.
But then because of that, Otonashi starts talking to her.
Right.
And then they have their relationship.
Which
Yes.
is so cute.
Very cute.
yeah.
Yeah, well, and at the time when I was watching that, I sort of knew that the substitute president, Naoi,
Yeah.
I knew that bad things were going to come from him, and that definitely came full-fledged in episode 6, when he locks them away and starts, like, just brutally killing all the members of the Battlefront and, just sort of, like, being this tyrant at the school. Which was another thing that I thought was cool, cool about the show, but that they didn't, like, give the time to develop, because you get episode 6, Kanade and Otonashi get captured, and then, like, Yuripi calls him on the walkie-talkie and is, like, talking about how, it's a massacre out here and he's doing all these terrible things, and they finally escape, which is kind of cool seeing, Kanade and Otonashi becoming friends, and working together to get out of there. And then, then you see him, like, hypnotizing the other school people, and, like, they're just brutally, killing all these people, and then he's about to hypnotize Yuripi and, like,
Force her to pass on.
Force her to pass on, through, like, these false memories and all this. And he seems like this, like, really evil guy, like, how are they going to beat him? And then Otonashi comes up and starts, yelling to him in the rain, and we get his little backstory. And then Otonashi's just like, I acknowledge your existence, hug. And then next episode, he's just friends with them, even though he was brutally murdering them,
Well,
the other day.
Trust him right away, so.
That's true, but they still let him be in their group,
Well, he only liked Otonashi anyway.
That's true, but, I mean, that's obviously the reason he was there, but I guess I don't get, like, why the rest of them were so accepting of it.
I definitely think the show could be longer, because there's so many things you're like, well, they could have done more with this and this.
Yeah. I definitely, even if they had given it, like, from a 13-episode series to, like, 16 or 20, just giving it, like, a few more episodes, I think might have helped, like, think if they, if that, instead of that episode 6, like, the whole, basically, vice president thing, happening within that episode, if it had, if they had let it continue on a little bit, and, they actually had to, like, find a way to, fight him, and, like, beat his whole evil plan that he had going on before, and then you get to the climax, with Otonashi, and the same thing can happen again as far as how he, resolves his problem, but instead of it all just happening, like, so abruptly, I guess, is my sort of opinion. What do you guys think of that?
That would definitely be interesting. I think that could have been, like he could have killed, like, one of the minor characters, like, early on, like, one of the characters that don't, like, the brown-haired guy with the sword, like you were talking about, and that would have, like, showed that he's, like, a real threat, and that maybe that could have also been, like, milked for, like, a little bit of irony, because now that Angel's gone, she wasn't, like, actively destroying any of them, so they could have, like, pushed that angle.
Very happy.
Yeah,
Very happy.
Someone's
people
very happy.
outside.
Speaking of which, do you ship Otonashi and the vice principal? Vice president? Because that sounds like something you would do.
For a little bit, I had a little. I was like, no, it's a little bit of crack shipping, But for a while, I was like, oh, he's totally gonna end up with Yuripi, because it's like the whole Haruhi and what's his face? Kion, that's his name. It's been so long since I've seen that. I'm like, it's a whole that kind of thing going on again. But then it's like, oh, hey, Angel's here now, and I'm like, oh, I see it, I guess.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people apparently compare Yuripi to Haruhi.
First thing I thought of when I saw her was like Haruhi. first thing.
There's certainly some similarities between the two of them, but Euripie is much more, like the serious leader type. She's not really like super crazy, weird like Haruhi is.
Yeah, they both had hair ribbons.
Yes, that's the similarity.
Yes, and they had interesting names for their little groups. SOS Brigade, whatever it was called, Battlefront. They kept changing the name.
That was like one of my favorite things, was the names.
Yeah, that they kept coming up with.
Like the first episode when they're trying to think of new names.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, that's stupid. That's stupid too.
Yeah. That was a good one. And then after you get after episode 6 with the substitute vice principal whole thing, then we get episode 7, which is another episode I had some problems with, because that's the episode where Euripie's like, hey, Naoi, why don't you hypnotize Otonashi and show him, reveal to him his past, get past his amnesia. And when we get the sort of the first half of his memories with him and his little sister and all that, which was quite well done, I think. Just showing.
I love that.
Oh, I loved his sister.
Yeah, Otonashi, you punk.
Well, I had seen some YouTube videos before, and I'd seen some people list like saddest anime deaths or whatever, and a lot of people had that scene where he's just carrying her on his back through the Christmas lights.
Oh my God,
that
yeah.
really pretty scene.
Yeah.
And she's just not responding at all.
Mm-hmm.
Which all that was well done, I think, and sort of showing how why he wanted to become a doctor, and all that. At the time, I thought that, you see him on the subway and then it crashes, and I thought that was it, like that
That's how
he
he
had died
died.
in a subway crash, and that was the end of that. And of course, later we learned the truth. But the problem I had with the episode was that we get this, super sad backstory for our main character, which we had sort of been looking forward to for quite some time, and it's really sad, and he's like, sitting there like crying in his hand. And then the next half of the episode is fun fishing trip of randomness. Like I don't mind series that sort of combine lighthearted comedy and some dark more serious dramatic stuff. Like Angel Beats in general, I think did it pretty well, but that particular episode was just like so abrupt, from super dark to lighthearted fun goodness.
But then in the end, it introduces a whole new problem, though.
Well, yes.
So
I
it was
mean,
like,
what it gets to, I don't mind, but just
it was really abrupt, though.
Yeah, like I think I would have preferred it to like see, maybe have Otonashi, once again, if they had more time, have like Otonashi's backstory, take up like a full episode, and then you could have the episode after that maybe be, the fishing episode, and then the whole revelation of the evil angels, the evil clone thing, and that way, they could have made that feel less abrupt, given Otonashi like the time to deal with like his past a bit more, rather than him just sort of crying about it. And then the next scene, he's like talking to Euripie, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm over it. Let's go fishing." Woo.
Yeah, I think like what you were saying with the 16 episodes, even that could have been better to like more.
Because that's like another hour and a half.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not going to be done in that time.
Mm-hmm. Although
Just to better explain some things.
I will say, just forgetting about like the contrast between the best sad backstory and the fishing story. I actually did quite like the whole fishing story. It was fun. There were some good jokes in there, and it was kind of cool seeing how Kanade, caught the huge fish for them, and sort of seeing her sort of be
Save their
integrated into the
life
group a little bit more. It was all good.
Call me Christ.
Yes, and that was definitely a point in the story, and I'm sure this was intentional, where it definitely feels like the story is almost like treading water at that point, because, we thought Angel was the guy that, the person that the Battlefront was fighting. Oh, wait, now she's not. Wait, now it's the substitute vice president. He's even worse than Angel was. Oh, wait, we took care of that problem. They had to sort of introduce something new, which is what they did at the end of that episode with the whole, evil angel thing standing up, looking ominously at them.
Ominously.
Da, 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 da. And then, then we get episode 8, which is basically, all of them going and figuring out what they're going to do about the evil angel thing and going through the guild again.
See, like, I always thought, like, a high school would always have some secret passage like that. So when they're like, oh yeah, it's this little passage under the gym, and I was like, yes, finally,
Nice.
I can see what's behind those doors. It's like I always had this like secret like fantasy in like middle school because we'd have a stage and have doors, and I never saw the doors open. I'm like, there's like a cellar under there. There's gonna be something under there, real cool like.
Yeah.
And I never knew what it was, and so
Well, if it's
little
anything like
childhood.
my stage, it was probably just hollow underneath so they could store a whole bunch of stuff.
Probably, but I mean,
Well, that's
I
no
was like
fun.
7, so of course I don't think practically about that. I'm like, no,
course
there's got to be
not.
something secret under there, something
out
nice
there.
that I can't get.
Exactly. Yeah, what did you guys think of the whole that whole episode? What was it? Not 7, 8 that we're on now with the evil Kanades. I did think it was kind of funny how they go back down to the guild and each of them has to sacrifice themselves on one of the Kanades in order to stop them. And each
TK.
time they're like, like doing this like shonen like cry for no, TK, oh, we'll remember you fondly, and then they just
TK.
move down to the next level. Although it did sort of bother me that, apparently Kanade has been shown multiple times to have this like ridiculously strong super strength, and yet they're just able to basically like throw themselves on her. She stabs them, and then their weight just keeps her pressed to the ground. Couldn't she throw them off of her pretty easily since she's so strong?
I don't know.
Nah, it's anime. You do
We don't
whatever.
have to.
Yeah.
We don't have to explain
You still
anything.
question.
I guess not. I did think that was quite funny, and then it was terrible when Naoi he hypnotized I don't remember his name, another sort of minor character that didn't have huge importance, the sort of younger
The younger
boy.
brown-haired kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was like super nice, and he like hypnotized him and told him like to go like hug the cute bear or something, and he runs over to Kanade and gets stabbed.
Yeah.
And now he's like, oh no, it's okay, Otonashi, I'll be the one to go next. And he goes and gets stabbed, and like nobody
No.
yells for him. You
Yeah,
know,
it's like-
it's like I don't even know that guy.
But like the whole series, I absolutely adored Hinata and Otonashi's total bromance, whatever going on. They were
Oh, yeah.
they were best friends.
Yeah,
That was great, and I loved their little line, which I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say in the podcast. They said all the time.
oh,
yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? That was my
Yes.
favorite part. Like when Otonashi ran to him in the ring, he's like, "Dude, insert line here," and
he's
I was like,
this is not the time.
"Yes, yes." It made me so happy.
Yeah, that was quite good. I'm just trying to remember now. What was the episode where we got sort of Hinata's backstory, and the whole
That
baseball
was,
thing? That had to be like 4.
That was
Yeah.
early on.
Yeah, that was early. That
yeah,
was
it
like 4.
4 or 5.
That was
maybe.
early.
Yeah.
I loved all the stuff that Yui wanted to do. Like she
They were so
like
random.
baseball and stuff.
Play
Yeah.
soccer, do wrestling.
It was
Be in
so
a band.
random. Like why?
She was so cute. Well, I mean, she did see all that stuff on TV, so I mean, not
Yeah,
being able
I
to
know
do
there's
that.
a reason later, but while you're watching it, just like, why does she want to do this?
Yeah, it was. And I thought it was funny how they, made it happen. Like how when they're playing, how Otonashi gets all of the guys to play soccer, and it's I think at first it's just like a thing from Angel, like
Yeah.
a threat letter, and then he gets there and it's like Yui, and he has this whole speech where it's like, the whole thing was a setup. Obviously, it's Yui who wants to do it. We have to go, go, and they all just sort of look at him for a second. They're like, well, that's really stupid. Well, let's go anyway.
anyways.
They all just charge in there. Like that was a good moment. I like that episode overall. And then you got the one of you mentioned the whole bromance between Otonashi and Hinata.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my favorite little scenes is there. When he's teaching Yui, trying to get her how to hit a home run. And he's like gathering up all the balls and putting them away, and Hinata just shows up and is like, "Hey, why don't we play some real baseball?" And
Yeah.
they just sort of
Tossing it back
start
and forth.
tossing it back and forth, and it's like, "Aw,
Yeah.
friendship,
Best friend.
best friend."
Like with like the whole episodes could be longer. I feel like they could have done more with Hinata Yui relationship development. If it's like, oh, they pick on each
Oh,
other,
yeah.
and then it's like, all of a sudden, oh, I would marry you.
I'm like, it just like comes up.
That
Like,
comes-
I'd marry you.
I'd marry you. It's like,
Oh,
oh, that
okay.
came
Oh,
out
yeah,
of
he's got
nowhere.
that-
It was sweet, and I loved the whole like little thing that they showed at the end
With,
where
like,
it
the
was like him
possibilities.
coming in
Yeah.
and wheeling her around. He's like, I'd take care of you, and we'd be so happy. And I was like, my heart.
Yeah, I would basically agree with what you just said. Like,
So
when they're
abrupt.
showing that bit, of like what what their relationship could be like, you know, and it was like, oh, that's kind of touching, and the song is playing there, you know, it makes you have all the feels. But yeah, it did feel like there hadn't been enough of that relationship built up. Like before then, I definitely saw that they had sort of the whole, you know,
picking on each other.
Yeah, they're always picking on each other. They're always getting into arguments and fights. But I never really seen like Hinata or Yui ever like have a moment of like quiet, you know, where they actually express like real, you know, feelings.
Or like even to someone else,
other.
like, hey, I kind of like Hinata or something like that. It was always
right. Like even if there had been a hint of it before then, you know, that would have made it more palpable. But it literally just comes out of nowhere, and it's, you know, it seems like a pretty big thing for Hinata to say like, I'd marry you. You know,
well,
that's
because he just walks onto the field.
Well,
like,
I mean,
where'd you
earlier
come
in the
from?
episode, he kind of was watching them for a while because you see him pick up the ball and like he was watching, but they didn't make it painfully obvious like a lot of series do.
Well, and I don't even need them to make it painfully obvious, you know, because if they foreshadow it too hard, then it's going to feel obvious.
Right.
But you know,
something.
just that's, you know, at least for me, that's not enough, you know, just to show I'm like staring at Yui, you know, at the baseball field near the end of that episode. You know, because at least for me, maybe this is a personal thing, but I think it's the whole "I'd marry you" thing is even like taking it a step above like "I love you." You know, like you get a lot of "I love yous" in shows, obviously. But it's like "I'd marry you." Like,
that's
whoa,
huge.
you know, you're like 17, she's 14, a little creepy. Number one, and number two, you know, that's like a whole.
And we didn't even know
obligation.
that they liked each other until
At
he just
all.
comes up and says it.
It's like, oh, surprise.
Well, I could get that they liked each other.
Well,
you know, that
they're not
there
like
was
that,
sort
though.
of a love-hate relationship going on.
A little
with
rivalry,
their,
whatever.
Yeah, with their arguing. But I never seen it like go to like true, you know,
Or,
love.
like he'd spend his life with her.
Yeah, like I could see more like Otanashi and Yui, or like, I don't know. Just that's what I like totally thought he was gonna like step in and say something, be like, you know, I would do that because I'm just a nice guy and I want you to move on. But then when Hinata comes in, I'm like,
No, actually, I would disagree with that because remember how Yui is like, you know, he asks her, you know, is there anything else that you wanted?
like they've had
And-
more development with a relationship though. That's the thing. Like they've had more than Hinata has,
well,
so I would be more like
I'd
it would have
say
been less surprised
in
if
that
it was him.
episode. They had, you know, a good bit of development, obviously, but I mean, maybe I could see Yui maybe looking up to Otanashi, but Otanashi definitely never really expressed having any romantic feelings for her. You know,
Right.
at that
Yeah, I
point,
can't really see him
at
with
that
her.
point, it was pretty obvious that he was already into Kanade.
Right,
You
but
know,
like
so
I was
that-
just saying, like I would be less surprised if it was him over
Yeah, that's
Hinata.
Yeah, I don't know. At least for me, like when she asks, you know, like, would you marry me? And he sort of hesitates. Like that felt natural for Otanashi. You know, I would have been like really mad if he was like, of course I'd marry you. You know, even if
Yeah.
he's just saying it to like get her to
Move on.
You know, that'd be like, no, that's not. That's
Yeah,
not right.
he's not. He was never really one to lie. Like even with Angel, he was like, yeah, this is what's happening right now.
Right. I did want to go back a little bit because, you know, you get that the episode we were talking about where they're going down into the guild, you know, and they're all sacrificing themselves and the angels. And that was actually kind of a funny moment because it's Euripi, Otanashi, and Yui are the three left. And then they slide down that little pit and Yui just like face plants on something. And they're just like, oh, where'd Yui go? Oh, Angel must have gotten her. Don't worry. We'll get her on the way back.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, oh,
Yui.
that was just kind of a failure.
You can't do anything right.
And then there was also because I've rewatched. I've seen the full show once, and I rewatched sort of the last half of the series because that's the half that's a bit more complicated, you know, than the first half, at least in my opinion. And then in that episode, you know, Euripi starts fighting another one of the angels, you know, like the last one down there. And there's that bit where she's making the howling noise, and Euripi's got the earbuds in though, so she's just able to run up and like attack her. And she says something to the effect of like, you know, you better be quiet, I'll slit your throat next. And she's got this knife, and she's got this cute little smile, but it's sort of like, wow, she's kind of a monster, isn't she?
A little bit.
Yeah.
And then, but I did think it was quite sad there at the very end where when Kanade, you know, makes the harmonics, uses the harmonics in order to, you know, bring all of the clones back into herself. And then the evil clone is just sitting there talking to Otonashi, and is like, well, all of these other programs of her are going to come back into her. There's a pretty small chance that the Kanade is going to emerge from all of it.
And then he's like, wait, what?
What? I missed that part. Yeah, and then all that's happening, and that was kind of like a, oh shit, what's going to happen sort of moment. And then we move on to the next episode, where we have her in the hospital, and no one's certain whether she's going to ever wake up again, or if she does, is she going to be nice Kanade or is she going to be evil Kanade? And then that's where he also has his second flashback, which I actually, whereas the first flashback I thought was good, but because of the way it was placed, I thought it was a little strange. The second one really worked for me. And I thought it was a pretty cool, like, sort of realistic portrayal of, like, how it would actually be, if the subway thing crashed and, they were trapped in there, and, like, what would he do, I thought it was a whole pretty moving experience. And then, of course, how he, fulfills sort of his dream of helping someone by, donating his organs. And of course, just as the rescuers are pushing through, he dies.
Yeah.
And everyone else gets to live, but he's dead.
Like his friend was like, Otonashi. And I was like, oh.
Yeah. So
now I'm sad.
Very conveniently timed death, just like his very conveniently timed amnesia.
Yeah.
Before getting into that world. And then, and that's also a pretty important episode because, he wakes back up and Kanade's, back to normal. And he sort of comes to this whole revelation about, like, what the world's about, like, getting these people to fulfill their dreams, and, like, get rid of their lingering emotions, so they can pass on and be reborn, in the real world again. And sort of where he makes it his mission, to do that and get everybody, so they could all leave together sort of thing.
And, of course, no one wants any of that.
Right. Well, and I thought... I almost thought that that's the direction the show was going to go. Like, what we saw with Yui in the episode after that, like, we were going to get that for, like, every one of the, minor characters, which on the one hand, I'm sort of glad that they didn't do because it would have got a bit repetitive, over time if we kept on saying the same sort of,
okay, what do you want? No, what do you want?
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, I was, like, interested enough in some of the characters, like we've mentioned, like TK, or even the, I don't remember his name, but the purple-haired dude with the giant axe.
I liked him.
Like, he was unique enough. Like, I wanted to know a little bit more about, like, why was he so obsessed with Euripi?
I wanted him to confess so much because it was so obvious that he liked her.
They showed it for a few more characters, but not, like, all of them because that would be so many.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Especially, like, even just all of the band members. Like, even then, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. With the band members, like, obviously you've got Yui and you've got, I don't remember her name, but the main guitarist, who disappeared, like, way back in episode 4.
What's her name?
It starts with a Y, I think, as well.
I thought it was, I don't know.
Maybe I'm wrong. But, obviously those two. And then the others I, like, barely remember anything about them. They were not very prominent characters.
No.
But there was one thing I noticed upon rewatching that episode. What would it be? We were at episode 7 earlier, episode 8. So that was probably episode 9, the episode where they get... Or no, it must be episode 8, where Kanade has her whole... wakes up again and has her whole revelation. She when Otonashi is telling her his backstory, like, this is what happened to me in the subway, and I donated my, organs, and all this stuff. And she says something that I didn't even really register with me when I watched it the first time, but watching it again, it's like, oh, it's so obvious. Mm-hmm. She says, when Otonashi tells Angel about her past, she says, "I'm sure the stranger you saved will say thank you for the rest of her life." Mm-hmm. And she even says her life, so it's like, well, how do you know that it's a she who got his organs, huh?
Like, I didn't catch it at all. I was like,
yeah, I didn't either.
Like, at the end, I just, so many manly tears.
Yeah. So that's a good bit of writing there by them versus, I think this show sort of in general sort of straddled the line between some really great writing moments, like the stuff in the subway, and some of the past, like Euripi's past, I think was, like super, like, wow, that's really really dark, you know,
Oh, yeah.
and like sad and stuff, and moments of clever writing like that. And then you get moments like, you know, where Hinata is, you know, confessing to Yui, and it's just like, I'd marry you, you know, and, you know, it hadn't been developed enough, and it was so sort of like cliche, and, you know, and even in the, even some of the stuff in episode 13 I felt was a little bit painful to listen to at times, you know, just with the way it was written.
Okay, I had this huge, like, when Europe was going down trying to find the god or whatever they're looking for,
Right.
and then just this random kid in this TV room, and he's, like, been the one controlling everything or whatever. I totally wanted it to be the Christ guy. Just because he was like, yeah, computer hackers, yeah. And I was like, I totally wanted to be him. But it wasn't, and I was kind of sad because it was this random kid. And then she
Right.
just shoots up all the computers, and that's the
Yeah,
end of that.
Well, yeah, you know, right before that episode, we get the one where like all the shadows are appearing for the first time, and it's, you sort of get the feeling like, oh, this is sort of the final boss, you know, like this is approaching the end of the show. And I quite liked the moment where Yuripi sort of calls out Otanashi and Hinata and Naoi, you know, who had joined it by that point, and, you know, sort of let them sort of explain, you know, what the truth that they discovered about this world, and sort of telling everyone that's your way to the only way we know to escape these shadows is to, you know, move on. And how they do it, I think, was kind of interesting because you don't actually hear what he's saying. It's just this you know, piano music is playing over it, and it's just him like giving this speech. You know, you see sort of people like looking at each other and stuff. And I thought that was kind of clever because if you'd heard the whole thing, you know, it'd sort of be a repeat of stuff we already knew as the audience, I suppose. And then after that too, you get a whole little montage of like that night where all of like the major members of the Battlefront are like, you know, sort of considering like what they're going to do, you know, whether they're going to vanish or whether they're going to stay. Like the axe guy is like standing by a river and he looks at a picture of Yuripi and like smiles, you know, and Sheena, the ninja girl, you know, is like looking at all
love
of her
her.
little
She's so
cute
tsundere.
things.
It's not even
You
funny.
know, we mentioned the Azumanga Daioh. She reminded me a lot of the Sakaki girl from that because they're both, you know, this sort of shy, quiet type
Same.
who love cute things.
They're totally tsundere, completely.
They're very similar. I also thought it was interesting in that episode how they have, I think his name is Takamatsu, the guy who would always brag about his muscles all the time. You know, he was another character that I actually did remember because he was pretty funny. And they, and how he, you know, gets devoured by one of the shadows and becomes an NPC. You know, that's actually kind of a pretty dark moment because that's basically like a fate worse than death, you know, for these people.
I was really upset at that point. I was like, no.
But then in the end, like after they solve all the problems in episode 13, it's just sort of a throwaway line like, oh, what happened to Takamatsu? Oh, well, he managed to overcome it, you know, and escape. Which, I've written down something about it because it bothered me at first, but then it does actually make sense because how Yuripi, I think, even says in that episode 13 that, you know, that the only way to defeat like the shadows and to overcome it was through like strong feelings, you know, which was sort of the whole point, I guess, that the guy who was the creator of the program, you know, became an NPC, you know, because he sort of went crazy after waiting so long for his beloved to come back. But the hope being that if eventually she did show up again, then he would fall in love with her again, and that would turn him back to normal, you know, and make him not an NPC anymore, you know. So I guess it does make sense, even if it is a little bit of a cop-out from a plot perspective. At least it's explained.
I just thought the whole NPC thing was interesting.
What, just, you mean how they just had
How
these
they're like not really
characters?
like the SSS or whatever.
Right, not the brigade, or the Battlefront.
I mean, like they're
keep saying the
there, but
brigade.
they're
Right, they're
not
just there,
anything.
basically created as a part of this world for the purposes of the actual humans, you know, who are there. Which was another thing I was a little bit confused about because, like, in that scene I was talking about where Otanashi's giving his big speech, there's like, you know, all of the like named members of the brigade are there, or the Battlefront. Damn it. But then you see like a whole bunch of like just more normal looking students, like you don't know who any of their names are, and I guess they're part of the Battlefront too, but we've never really seen them.
There might be people who live in the guild. I don't know.
maybe. But most of those were like guys, and they were wearing like like their work uniforms, weren't they?
I don't know.
So many characters.
So many.
That's a good point. And like, so are all the guild people actually like humans too? And they all had to like figure out like what their dreams were and like move on and all that.
I don't know.
Maybe.
That was actually one of the questions I was thinking about. Like, so the guild, if the NPCs are just supposed to like move around and complete the normal school day, then what is the guild? Then how are they like? Because the NPCs, I don't think, would be making weapons.
No, I think they are humans. Because in episode 12, when Eurypie's going down to the guild, and she's fighting all the shadows. The one guy, I don't remember his name, but he's like the head of the guild, and he looks way too old to be a high schooler, but apparently he is. He says thank you to her, and I think says like that all the other members of the guild had escaped and passed on, and he wanted to give her like that last gun before he disappeared too. So I think that they all were humans. It just was never. I mean, they're not important enough characters, I guess, to get much development.
Yeah.
One thing that did confuse me a little bit about the whole like concept of like them moving on was like with Hinata, we were sort of inferred that had he in that early episode had he caught that like pop fly ball out to second or whatever, the thing that he failed to catch in his life, had he actually caught that, he would have disappeared right there, and like Yui had to sort of fulfill her like dreams in order to pass on. But then the rest of the brigade, the battlefront, gosh darn it, the battlefront, all the members sort of go away between episodes 12 and 13. You wake up in 13 and it's only Eurypie, Naoi, Hinata and Otonashi left. So are we supposed to imply that all of them fulfilled their dreams, or are they just like, well, we're actually happy here and we're just going to sort of let ourselves move on? Is that all that required, or do you have to fulfill your dream?
Yeah, that's what I was confused about.
I think it was just ultimately like they had found their happiness and they didn't in real life.
Right.
So like Yui, her happiness was like being able to move, being able to be in a band. It was like things that she just wanted to do.
Right.
So I think it was like more just a measure of happiness.
Just being comfortable with
Right.
it.
Just doing something that you felt really good about.
Right.
So the guild members might have been like being part of a group of people, a guild. I don't know, but like being able to like make something that they couldn't do in real life, or just
being able to help like the battlefront,
right.
Doing something, being a part of a whole, something that's greater than yourself. A lot of people find satisfaction in that. And you were mentioning like the whole all the stuff that's going on with the shadows and what happens to Eurypie, in episode 12, because you get that bit where she's sort of wandering down the guild and she stops to rest, and then she wakes up in this world where she's sort of become an NPC, and she has this whole speech on like how like this isn't her life, like this isn't what she wants, her life was unfair and that's why she's fighting, and all this stuff, and she sort of manages, I guess it's never really fully explained, but I guess the idea is that while she was like resting in that spot, a shadow found her and she was like becoming an NPC, but she just managed to break through it through force of will, like.
See, I thought maybe it was a flashback type thing, like she was remembering when she first got there. I don't know. That's what I thought when I first watched it.
I don't think so, because like you definitely get the feeling that it's not real, like it's something that she imagined, because like when she starts her speech, like everybody else in the room disappears and it's just her standing there talking, and then when she like finishes it, and like sort of denies that world, like all the shadows like burst through the window, I think, and she's like being swallowed by it, and then Otonashi like yells out to her and she comes out of it, if you will. So another thing that was not really fully explained, but there's enough there for people to understand and imply what's going on, I think. One thing that didn't sort of bother me so much, just because it's something that I see done in like lots of anime and shows in general, is how the sort of rule, where if you're fighting one of a certain type of enemy, it's a super deadly force, but when you're fighting 100 of them, then you're able to defeat them easily. You know, because they're fighting the first shadow they encounter, and it takes like a ton of bullets, you know, for them to even beat. And then when they're fighting like the group of 100 of them, one bullet through one and it disappears.
Maybe they upgraded their guns.
Level up.
I don't think so.
Oh, we came up
TK's
with.
way of fighting them makes me so happy. Just him like spinning down the stairs.
Yeah.
He's
It
so
was
funny.
so great.
And he like quotes songs.
Yeah,
Yes.
I did think it was kind of cool how what was his name? It starts with an M. It was like M something the fifth. What did they call him?
It was like Maku.
Matsushita.
Matsushita the
that was
Fifth.
it.
I love him.
I liked how he came like back at that moment. He'd been like training in the mountains and got all thin.
I was like, yeah, I didn't have
It was
anything to eat.
was
And
just
they were
able
just
to
like, okay.
punch. Yeah, like once again, you know, he doesn't even need a gun. He just punches one of the shadows and it disappears. Excuse me.
Excuse you.
Oh man. But
I love him.
Yeah, and there were some cool fights with like, you know, the animation when they're fighting the shadows and stuff like that was all, you know, well done. You know, that was probably the biggest action we'd really seen since a lot of the Angel stuff earlier on in the show. And the whole bit where Eurypie is encountering the guy down in the room of computers definitely reminded me a lot of like the end of the second Matrix movie. Was that Matrix Reloaded?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't watch.
The
Like-
less we speak about the Matrix sequels, the better.
Yeah, it just sort of felt like that a little bit to me, where there's just like the two characters are in a room and the one is like revealing all these complicated secrets about the world. And I was just sort of like,
Yeah, I did get that too, because
What?
he had all those like computer screens in his basement, just like in the Matrix too. I'm like, because he had all those TV screens and they're just talking about this thing, and in the Matrix you're just like, I don't even. You're making this
Right.
up. You're
Well,
just running
maybe,
with this.
Maybe it was just me, but I had to sort of like look it up on Wikipedia or rewatch it a second time to really fully understand like what he was saying about this, the original programmer of like the Angel player, and like what was happening with the shadows, and like how he was basically offering Eurypie the control of it to become like a god, you know, and all of that took a little bit of time to sink in for me, at least. What about you
And
guys?
she's like, nope, bang, bang, bang.
No, I agree. It was definitely hard to understand that first time you watch it, because I watched that and I was like, and you know, and she shoots the thing, and some of it, like I got that he was offering her control of the world, and she was gonna be God, and then she shot the thing, and I got that, but everything up until that point, I was kind of like, I'm just not absorbing it.
I think I could watch it again and get more out of it, because there are some things where I was like, what? And then I just kept watching and kind of never got it.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've talked to my friend Matt a little bit about this, Matt Lunn, and he's not as much of a fan of Angel Beats. He definitely had some problems with it. I don't think he had sort of said to me before that like there's this moment where this character has to make a choice, and she makes the choice that you know is like against her character and all that. And I think he's talking about this, you know, because old Eurypie, you know, like if she was how she was, you know, when she was really fighting Angel and stuff, probably would have taken that power, you know, and used it to like fight Angel and try to, you know, find God, you know, or become God and all that sort of stuff. But I think that she had gone through enough, you know, like with, you know, becoming friends with, you know, Otanashi and Kanade and all of them, you know, and sort of realizing that, you know, what she was doing, you know, the whole Battlefront, you know, fighting thing really wasn't, you know, for the best. You know, maybe it would have just been better had they all just moved on with their lives, you know. I think she had learned enough about all of that for her to make that choice to say, basically refuse all that power and shoot all the computers, you know, and stop this shadow thing from happening. So
Yeah, I think it made
felt
sense
like,
at that point.
yeah, I felt like it was justified. It was a cool moment too, you know, cool animation, the music, you know, obviously gets nice and climactic, and she has a nice little monologue. So
Like, for a second, you think she's going to, 'cause she gets that really, like, power-hungry smile, and I'm just
Yeah,
like, what are you
creepy face.
doing?
Right. And then we get to the final episode, the graduation episode.
Manly tears.
Right. Which,
The feels.
yes, which, what did you guys think of, speaking of Eurypie, what did you guys think of her in episode 13, like when she's, you know, she's being a lot more, you know, sort of girly, if you will, and, you know, much more comedic and less serious, you know, than she had been up until that point in the show.
Well, I think she finally, like, was able to let her guard down.
Right.
Like, she finally felt safe. So she was like, oh, I guess I can just be more girly.
Yeah, it was cool to finally see that, because she hadn't been like that the whole show.
Mm-hmm. What did you think, Andrew?
It was definitely, I thought it was interesting to see her, like, it shows, I guess, how much, like, she changed over the series, because she's, like, become more comfortable, especially with, like, Angel being there, and she's, like, less full of hatred. Right. I think she got worked through that anger she had, like, in the beginning of the series.
Yeah. Well, I think, a big part of that was at the very end of that episode 12, after she destroyed all the computers, she has sort of that vision of, like, her 3 siblings, and they, like, say, like, thank you for being our sister or whatever, and she starts crying. And so sort of the implication there is that she had come to accept her feelings, like her loss, and come to terms with it, and she was ready to pass on there, just like the rest of them were. Although, one thing I want to mention before I forget it, because I was just reminded of it, in the episode, let's think, if that's episode 13, then this is episode 11, when the shadows first appear. Like, I think Yuripi is talking with, like, Angel and Otanashi and Hinata and all of them just before, they make their big choice, like whether they're going to move on or stay in the world and all that. And Yuripi mentions, like, oh, and didn't you know Angel really isn't an angel, she's just a normal person. And Otanashi and, like, Hinata are, like, freaking out, like, they can't believe this is true. But
and then she's like, I never said I wasn't an angel.
But yeah, at least to me, like, that had been, like, super obvious from episodes and episodes ago. Like, how did Otanashi not figure that out, being as close as he was to her?
Like, I told you that right away.
That sort of bothered me a bit.
It's like, hey, they're calling you Angel. She's like, I'm not an angel. Right, like, first episode. I'm not an angel. Like,
Otanashi's even the first one to, like, find what her real name is, So, it just bothered me a little bit. But then, going on to episode 13, what did you guys think of how that was done? Like, the whole sort of self-done graduation ceremony, and then the, goodbyes and passings on, that happen after that. How did you think of how that was executed?
I thought it was really cute.
I was about to say it was cute too, and they're finally, like, okay with themselves and just ready to
it was like
move on.
A huge gift for Yuripi, which I thought was really sweet. Because they're like, here you go, lady, this is for you.
It just showed how much they had changed, that they were willing to do that.
Yeah, well, especially Yuripi, and, like, because Naoi and Hinata had been sort of figured it out and were with Otanashi and his whole plan for quite some time at that point. I did find it a little bit strange when they're like I liked the bits, where they're like, they sang the Mabo Tofu song, and then they sang the traditional, like, Japanese graduation song, which is another thing I think I found in common with it and Azumanga Daioh, because I'm pretty sure they sang almost that exact same song in both shows.
Maybe it's just the thing.
I think it's just tradition.
Like the national anthem.
Right. But I did find it a little weird when they're doing the whole diploma handout thing, and Hinata's, like, dressed up like this professor. And
he's so silly.
And it just seemed to take a little too long when it's all it is them getting this piece of paper. The only one that was actually, like, somewhat meaningful was Yuripi's, like you mentioned, because it had that whole, like, thank you for being a great leader for us. That was sort of cool. But beyond that, the diploma whole bit was just sort of part of the ceremony. It really didn't have any meaning to it, for me at least.
I mean, maybe they were just kind of stalling.
Yeah, stalling for time. And then I did quite like when Otanashi, he was, like, giving the graduation speech, and he was just sort of recounting, like, his whole experience, with the Battlefront since he first arrived to then, and I thought that was kind of cool, because I think they even, like, showed, images from past episodes, and just how much had changed over that time, I thought that was well done.
Mm-hmm.
And then the characters start saying goodbye. I think, who's the first to go? It's Naoi, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's like, I don't want to see you guys crying. And then he goes to Otanashi. He's, like, bawling his eyes out, and I'm like, oh, give him a hug.
I did notice, you can tell whenever, like, Naoi was, he was always serious, like, when he had his hat on, it was, like, angled down, but then he'd take his hat off and, like, look really cutely up at Otanashi whenever, he wanted to be nice. Yeah, and I thought that was sweet. Even though Naoi was sort of a jerk, obviously, well, big-time jerk in episode 6.
Big-time jerk.
And he was sort of a jerk to all of the characters, throughout. Like, I I did quite like it how he would occasionally hypnotize Hinata and just sort of turn him into like this, like completely raving lunatic, because he's talking about like how he's worse than toilet paper, and toilet paper's, more greater than he is, and all this stuff. But his whole backstory, I thought, was pretty sad. How he thought he was, like he didn't even exist. He had just sort of fulfilled his brother's existence, and he didn't even have a life of his own. And Tanashi was the only one who actually recognized him as being a person. And so, him saying goodbye to Ojinashi makes sense. Mm-hmm. And just in general, throughout all those, I did quite like how how they would always sort of do it was, they'd say like goodbye, do their final farewells, and then like move out of the frame in some way, and then it would cut out to a wider shot, and they just be disappeared.
I was expecting like there to be like a light or something, but it was like, oh, we're just gone.
Yeah, see, I kind of like that though.
Mm-hmm. It's like less dramatic, but I like expected kind of something. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It was just a little like
fog.
Yeah, like something, or it was like a ding, but it was like, oh, walks the frame, just gone. Like no little like no like we know they're not there anymore, but like just like a little something to be like, oh hey, they're
kind of like
gone.
Peaceful though. They just kind of just fade out, I guess.
Yeah. And then and I think after that, Yuripi, says her goodbyes, and sort of thanks Kanade for being like, we could have been friends sort of thing, under different circumstances. And I thought that was nice, seeing how far she'd grown, as a character. Although it does sort of make me think like, after that episode 12, and her big climax sort of as a character, she really doesn't have much left to do in episode 13, since she's not really their leader anymore. She's just sort of,
she's like a girl for the first time.
Right. Yeah. She's just more sort of normal, and then you get the goodbye between Hinata and Otanashi. I quite like that because, yeah, it wasn't like a tearful, goodbye really. It was just sort of like, see you later next time, high five sort of thing.
And then he's gone.
Yeah, I thought that was well done. And then, of course, we get to this whole bit where, Otanashi and Kanade go outside, because they want to have some scenic, beautiful shots, for that final farewell. And I did find it a little strange how Otanashi, who had been the one who was advocating for everybody sort of to disappear together so they could all, like be reborn, and all this. And at the end, when it's just him and Kanade left, he's the one who gets cold feet and is like, you know what, let's just stay here, just the two of us forever. Mm-hmm. Now that I've gotten rid of everyone else who could have competed for you, just you and me forever. I mean, obviously not that creepy, but it was a little like strange given all the stuff how hard he'd been trying to get everyone else to vanish. Why wouldn't he want to vanish himself?
I feel like
he just like helping people.
Yeah. Like the whole time he was like not thinking of himself. Like that's the thing. Like he stopped thinking about himself after his sister died. So he never like probably thought like, oh, I'm going to have to leave too. And everyone close to me is going to leave. And the girl who I like and love is going to leave.
Right.
So then I'm going to be alone. Because I didn't really think about that.
He didn't think about himself leaving.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I have to do that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and although it does sort of make sense, how his whole reason for staying really is so that they can teach, like the new, because basically the majority of the school has sort of been wiped out by the whole shadow thing, but pretty soon there's going to be new, humans coming into that world, and maybe they don't understand like what's going on, and they're going to form a similar Battlefront thing and like refuse to move on, and he sort of thought that he and Kanade would stay there and sort of teach them the proper way of doing things. And then we get the whole revelation with Kanade saying like, yeah, you sort of gave me your heart and I wanted to say thank you, and that was my whole reason for being here this whole time. And I thought that was actually quite a surprising little revelation because like I said before, even though there's sort of been hints, I didn't see it coming. It was like, oh no, and now she's going to disappear, and then everyone starts crying, and the sad music starts playing. And it's
manly
like,
tears.
Oh no. Oh jeez. And
tears happened.
Yeah, and it is sort of strange because you sort of get this feeling like, oh no, like almost like she's going to die sort of thing. But in reality, like we've just seen all these other characters vanish, and we know it really is a good thing. She's just going on to be reborn in the world anew. So it's a goodbye, but it's not really like she's dying. But yet, you know, she's crying, you know, or not she's crying, but he is crying and saying like, "Don't go." You know, the music's playing, and you feel like she's about to die. You know, even though
It's
she
like,
really
I need
isn't.
you to say it. That's how I'm gonna move on. It's like, I need you to say like, I love you and stuff, and he like doesn't want to say it.
Oh, it's so sad.
I know, and I'm like, feels.
Yeah, and that's like the first time you really see her like really start to emote, you know, because before that she's been very, you know, sort of neutral.
She's almost like robotic a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think they definitely emphasize that in because whenever she uses the angel player stuff, like her voice goes all robotic, just like Hand Sonic, you know, version 2 or whatever.
I loved that sound when she did that. I just loved the way she said it. I don't know, just a little thing.
Just a little thing.
Just a little thing.
Yeah. But I thought that whole thing was sad, you know, and then especially when he does finally say I love you, and she just disappears, and he falls to the ground, is like scrambling in the air trying to like grab where she was, and sort of just screams her name in the sky. And then you get that interesting ending, you know, because the ending credits up to that point had been, you know, sort of the fading in of all the characters, you know, it's starting with Eurypie and like all the other members just sort of appearing in this large cast photo. Whereas in the final episode, it's them disappearing, and you know, not all of them are in order, but when it gets like the main like 5, you know, who had been in that episode, they all disappear in that order. You know, you finally see Angel disappear, and then Otanashi disappears soon afterwards. You know, and the song reaches its end, and it's like, oh, so sad.
Yeah. And then they see each other IRL.
Right. Yeah. I did think that was kind of cool because. If you listen, Kanade is humming the same My song, you know, that theme that she was humming in that episode 13. And so I guess that sort of implies, you know, that even when they're reborn and they don't have their previous memories, it's almost like a subconscious thing, you know, like you don't even realize it, but you do have those memories of your past lives, you know, because reincarnated Otanashi seems to recognize it. So, you know, I think that was good of them to give it sort of a little bit of a happy ending, you know, even though it's still bittersweet.
Kind of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was actually reading up on the ending, and apparently in one of the DVDs, there's a second epilogue.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I've not actually watched it, but yeah, apparently there's a second epilogue where Otanashi actually stays at the school for a while and like is trying to teach the new kids, you know, like to pass on and all that.
Like,
and then eventually he passes on too, but after some time.
Like in the episode, there's this kid and he's like taking a test in the class, and he's just like, "Why do I have to be here? I'm dead. Why do I have to keep doing this? Grr." And then the door opens, like, guys, this is school president. It's class president. And it's Otanashi, and then he's like, "You kid, come with me," and like being all tough and stuff. So then he goes out and he's like, "Do you want to get out of here?" And like he's like, "We're on the same team, and I'm really not that bad of a guy," type of thing. And like it was actually really cool because you think Otanashi is this really like scary guy now. It's like, oh my gosh, he's an NPC, but no, he's not. He's just he became a class president.
Right.
In
see that.
little bit.
Yeah, I'll have to find that.
Like I only saw it in the English dub part, not the dub, the subtitle. Yeah, no, it was the dub part. Like after I'd already watched the subtitled ones, and I was like, oh, that's new.
And did you, for those of you who are watching on Hulu, did you also watch the one listed as episode 14 as well? How many of you guys saw that?
Which one was that?
It was an extra, at least on the Hulu page. You know, there's episode 13, which is the actual last episode, and then also had an episode 14. But in reality, it takes place like in the chronology, it takes place before they sort of get rid of Angel, you know, because it's still them like doing the Battlefront things. It was actually a really, really funny episode because Eurypie basically tells them all that she wants them to go a full day going to school and doing everything like they call it like Operation High Tension. So like doing everything to like the most ridiculous, like extreme amount of energy possible.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they just go completely crazy, and they have this little like meter in the corner that's always counting up like how energetic everyone is. You know, like from 0 up to 99.
Wasn't Taka, what's his face? Was he like doing mad push-ups or something?
Yes.
I can't remember, but he was like he was doing something. Yeah, Takamatsu. He was doing something muscular
Yeah, I thought
with his muscles.
it was a pretty funny episode, I thought, and apparently it was on like it's a DVD like thing where when they released the DVDs or the Blu-rays, they actually had like this special bonus episode, basically just purely there for comedic purposes, which is sort of nice given like how sort of sad the ending was. It's like, oh well, here's something that's happy.
Yeah,
palate
I'll have to look that
cleanser.
up too. I was on Netflix, so I didn't see that.
Oh yeah. So I thought that was pretty funny. And then I guess now we're on to sort of overall thoughts. At least for me personally, I thought Angel Beats was definitely a good show. I enjoyed watching it. It had moments where it was like it was great, some of the moments like we talked about with Euripides' revelation, and some of the sad backstories, and the music and some of the action, like it had a lot of things that could have made it really great, I think. But because of its length only being 13 episodes and some of the bad writing and quick plot developments, like the Yui getting married thing, that didn't really have enough time to develop fully. I do think it sort of limits itself from being a great show because of some of those limitations. But it's still a show I definitely recommend everyone to go watch, get your opinions on it, enjoy it for what it is, because it is a good show. What would you guys say?
I definitely agree with the length thing. I thought it was a good show overall, but not my favorite show, but it had good moments, and there were some where it's like, that could have been a little bit better.
Like, I definitely think, like, if they could have been, like, backed by a larger company or, like, a sponsor of some sort, they could have done more with it. It had a lot of potential, but I'm just thinking maybe they just didn't have the resources to make it longer, or I don't know what happened, but I definitely wish they would have, because I enjoyed it very much. It was cute, and the bromance was lovely, and characters were nice also. Like, there wasn't one character who I, like, really disliked, because normally there's this one character you're just like, stop existing. I didn't have that, which was nice. I wish they could have done more with it, but
Yeah, because they had so many characters, but only a few of them had really developed stories.
Right. What about you, Andrew?
Overall, I thought it was good, but I think it was kind of slow in the beginning. Like, the first couple episodes, they didn't, like, develop a whole lot. Like, the first episode, like, they established all the rules and laws of the world, and the second episode, they kind of, further established some things. But I don't think the plot really picked up until they did, like, it kind of picked up when they did the Hanada episode of the baseball thing, and then there wasn't a whole lot of development until what did we say, the one
when
Angel
when they made Angel
Yeah.
lose her class president.
So those episodes I think are kind of like slow, and I feel like they could have done a little bit more like character development with a few of them.
Yeah, I'd say definitely seems like some of those early episodes are less plot intensive, as some of the later ones are. They're just sort of like more of these silly adventures, that they go on. Like one bit that we didn't really talk about, but it is sort of important for what happens later on the show, is the whole bit where the Girls Dead Monster, the band is performing.
those are my favorite episodes.
And then the teachers show up and are like trying to stop their band. They're taking away their instruments, and then the main chick at the time, comes out and does her like song ballad thing.
That Yuri had originally said, no, don't do a ballad.
Right, and she sings it, and then she disappears afterwards, and that's the first time we'd seen anyone disappear. We really didn't know what it meant at the time, but obviously later we learn what that was. And that honestly, that was a really just cool moment in general, because I think we got a little bit of her backstory, like that she wanted to be this rock star but couldn't in life, and that was sort of her dream, obviously.
Her story was really sad.
Yeah. And another great moment, actually, from the earlier episodes that I quite liked, what was it? It was that episode where they're forging Angel's tests, like to make her fail the class or whatever. And in order to do it, how Euripides makes all of their desks, turn into these rocket things and blast them in the ceiling. And the best part about it is when they show the replay of it and it's playing the ending like credits theme, and it's like this really sad little theme, and it's just showing them spiraling up into the ceiling.
And like the screen pauses for a bit.
I know, that's one of my favorite jokes. Something I actually didn't notice about the show until I started rewatching it, because oftentimes when I watch a show, I'll watch the opening and the ending for the first time I watch it, and then I'll skip it a lot of the times because I'm trying to like get around the commercials on Hulu and things like that. But actually, if you watch the openings, each opening before every episode, it has a bit during that song, like right where it gets into the main refrain and starts picking up in pace a little bit, where it shows a montage of scenes from that episode. So it changes from episode to episode.
And like things that have previously happened also.
Yeah, I think a little bit of that too.
And like the characters changed. Like they add Yui in there and they subtract, I think it's her name's like Isana or something. I cannot remember.
Yeah, I don't remember.
She was one of my favorites. But like they subtract
Even
her.
though she was only in like 3 episodes.
Yeah, she was pretty awesome.
Yeah. So yeah.
Play guitar.
Overall, yep. It seems like we all sort of agree the show is good, but it has some problems that keep it from being great. I really didn't have anything, like I said, I love the music in the show. I really couldn't find anything to complain about with the animation. The fight scenes all look great, and even when they weren't fighting, things were usually pretty fluid, and there didn't seem to be a whole lot of sort of shortcuts, to like get around cheap animation budgets and things like that.
Yeah, there wasn't a time where I thought there was ever cheap animation.
Yeah, so I thought they did a good job on that. I did really come to, I think they did a good job of making Otanashi a likable protagonist, because you definitely feel like he's sort of this sort of, calm guy, like rational, logical guy in this sort of group of crazy people, which you sort of can sympathize with. And, and he's, pretty normal of a guy, but yet he's dependable, and he does sort of become a leader later on. And his whole relationship with Kanade is quite touching. Like I didn't really feel that much for her earlier in the series, but as like they start to spend more time with her, like when he takes her on their first little date, and they go eating the mabo tofu thing, and she's able to eat it without like any side effects, just little things like that, you sort of get more of her personality. She becomes more than just like a robot. And then that all obviously leads up to that episode 13 climax.
And he kind of brings out the good in all the characters.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably accurate to say, except maybe for the purple-haired guy, because purple-haired guy kind of hated him.
Yeah, they never got along. His name was like Niji, something with
purple-haired guy.
Yeah,
purple-haired guy. I like purple-haired guy.
His name.
But like I loved. Like, one of the things that I always found funny was that they would always insult each other's intelligence. It would be like, yeah, we're morons.
Oh, yeah.
They're a moron. We're idiots.
Yeah, Yui would say that a lot, too.
Yeah. It's like, he's a moron.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
So
they just accepted that they were all stupid.
And we have talked quite a bit about how, the show is felt a little short. It could have been longer. But at the same time, one of the things I do sort of admire about the show for, it being only a 13-episode show is it changes considerably, over the course of that time. Like, it evolves, like we said, it definitely seems to go sort of in segments, from the beginning to the end. So what you thought the show was about at the beginning, it's not what it is at the end. It sort of evolves over time, and it does feel rushed, obviously, at points, as we've talked about, but it doesn't feel completely unnatural. Like, I know some people I really dislike some of the later episodes because it gets a little bit, like, too sappy in their opinion, like too lovey-dovey, with them, like, trying to make their dreams come true, sort of thing. It is a bit cliche, but at the same time, when you're dealing with a story about the afterlife, and the whole premise being that these people had terrible lives in the past.
And, like, makes up for it.
Exactly, yeah. You're supposed to, the whole point of them being here is, it sort of reminds me of, like, the stories you hear about, like, ghosts, like how ghosts exist in the world because they still have something, like they have something they left behind, something they weren't able to do in life.
Because they all have these sad stories.
Exactly, so the fact that, a show that's dealing with the afterlife, and whether God exists and all this sort of stuff, it sort of makes sense that it's eventually going to get to this point where it is a little bit sappy and it's like, uplifting, in a way. And I think that's definitely a positive thing, for anime in general, because you get a lot of shows that are, more grounded in reality or a bit more realistic, or I think it's good to see not just anime but entertainment in general that's willing to sort of be that have that sort of positive message, and be sort of a little bit cliche and sappy, for the effect of getting like that emotional response and making it feel like these characters are really being redeemed, and all that. Yeah, pretty much. That sounds like a good way to wrap up the podcast. One thing I did want to talk about real quick, obviously, as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, we've already decided what we're going to be doing for next week, which will be the show Madoka Magica. But as far as what we do after that, I really haven't decided. There are a few options I've thought of. We've talked a lot about doing the movie Summer Wars, which they have at the library, which could be a thing we could do. Like we do Madoka next week, and sometime after that we all get together and watch Summer Wars, and the week after that do a podcast on that. Or if you don't want to do a movie, we could, like go where we do Madoka next week, and then take like a week off. Give us 2 weeks, like watch some 24 episode series or 12 episode series or whatever, and then come back and do that. Some shows I have written down here that we've have not done. Obviously, Code Geass, Death Note. These are ones we've talked about before. Problem with Death Note being it's like close to 40 episodes, so that's too much to do just at once. And Code Geass, just season 1, which everyone can watch, is 25 episodes. But I don't know if I could do a Code Geass podcast and limit myself to the first season when I know everything that happens in the second.
Like with Death Note, we can like do it up to like episode 25 when it takes like
do it like a 2-part.
Yeah, like do 2-part, which is like a whole like another half. But even then, it's like there are things that happen that I want to talk about, and my angry feels want to expose themselves all over these characters.
There's a show I've heard about. I've never seen it. It's called Mushishi. It's available on. I've seen it on YouTube. I think it's on Hulu as well.
I feel like I've seen it.
If it's on Hulu, it's probably on Netflix. It's supposed to be a bit more like not like sort of, I want to say artsy, but not in like the pretentious sort of way, more in the type where it has like beautiful visuals and it's a bit more serious, and grounded. It's not going to be like a crazy, fun, wacky sort of action show like some shonen show, but it's supposed to be quite good from what I've heard. We've got stuff like Hellsing Ultimate, which is a bunch of OVAs, like 40, a little bit over an hour OVAs that are super bloody and violent and fun to watch. Black Lagoon, Monster, a show I've heard of called Mongolian Chop Squad, which is supposed to be, it's like a band sort of show, a little bit like Kids on the Slope, music related. One I've heard about, a lot of people have talked about it for this year, like being like the most popular anime that come out in 2012, a show called Sword Art Online, which from what I've heard has a really cool premise, but sort of loses itself later down the road. So I've sort of heard mixed things about it.
I've had someone recommend it to me earlier this year, and the manga recently came out on the website, but like it appeared under the Shonen Ai section, and I'm like, wait a minute, is this yaoi?
Well,
what is this? I'm so confused.
I was watching a video that Giga posted, and I do know there is a whole scene involving the main female character and a bunch of tentacles.
Oh,
so that's
tentacles.
That's promising.
Always tentacles.
So that might.
I don't know where this is going.
Push us away from it. Another one. This is a 2011 show, I believe. It's called Steins Gate, and that's one that's been critically acclaimed. It's actually a time travel show, and it's supposed to get pretty good, like 24 episodes. So that's a possibility. Toradora is one that Mark has been aiming for a long time. What else do we got here? Samurai Champloo, Soul Eater is one we've thought about doing for a while, another longer series. Tiger and Bunny.
I've heard of that one.
Tatami Galaxy is a good one. Wolf's Rain is one that I've heard, like it's a 90s show, but it's one that people put up there with like Bebop as far as like, greatest anime
I
of
heard
all
the
time.
ending is just like crazy sad.
Yeah, I already sort of know what the ending is. It
I
is
don't know
crazy
if
sad.
Can my heart take it?
Maybe not.
I don't know.
Maybe not. All right, so I don't know. What do you guys think? Would you rather try to do some sort of movie for this for after Madoka? After sort of doing 2 TV shows, do a movie, or would you rather maybe take a bit of a break and have the time to watch a full TV show of some sort?
I think a movie would be fun. I
Movie would be
kind
fun.
of want to do Wolf's Rain sometime, though.
I would like to do that at some point too. There's a lot of these I'd like to do at some point, obviously. So you guys would be good with that? I've thought about, obviously Summer Wars is a really good movie. I think we could do. There's also, the library has a number of Satoshi Kon's movies, like Millennium Actress, Perfect Blue, more serious movies, not as lighthearted as Summer Wars, but they're really, really good movies.
You want to go? There are people outside. It's Laura.
It's Laura
and
and
Mark and Kenny. What are
That's
they
right.
doing?
I think Kenny might be coming to give me my razor. He was talking about doing that at the end of the podcast.
Lol.
Nice.
Cosplay.
So I guess we'll just plan on doing Summer Wars next time.
Let's go.
Or not next time, sorry, after Madoka.
After Madoka.
That way we'll have a movie to sort of break us up between TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you guys all for being here. I think we had a nice long discussion on Angel Beats. And for those of you who have enjoyed this podcast, you can email us at techheads@avwproductions.com. You can follow us on Twitter at techheadsou. Like us on Facebook. We're Techheads. We've got a website, avwproductions.com/techheads, I believe is what it is. Weblog/techheads, something like that.
Something or other.
Something or other. You
Google
can read our
Magic.
blog there. Obviously, you can subscribe to our other podcasts on iTunes. Leave us some good ratings, reviews, things like that. We always enjoy hearing those things. And thank you guys very much for being on this episode. And we will see you guys in a week or so when we talk about Madoka Magica.
Yeah.
All right. So long.
Kiss.
This product is copyright AVW Productions 2020.